and welcome to the Zia Wool Studio Buzz podcast. I am Doug and I am coming to you from Albuquerque in the beautiful desert of New Mexico, where we had a tiny bit of snow just yesterday. I went on a long run yesterday and I was surprised with snow after I was already a good bit into the trail, which was such a nice and unexpected surprise that I enjoyed very much. And I was out for a long time and I was thinking about recording the podcast, and it was a time where I thought a lot about the community of all of you out there, and I felt like, wow, this is a time where I would love to sit down with everybody and kind of like chat. Hey, so how was your Christmas? And what did you do? What did you enjoy the most this Christmas? And are you ready to leave this crazy year behind us? And did you eat a lot of cookies? Did you bake? And I thought, wow, I would love to know what you all enjoyed about this Christmas, and if you had maybe a favorite recipe that you, especially if you maybe had a favorite recipe that you would love to share. And here's my email address if you want to pop me a line and say, hey, this is what I baked and it was a full success with my whole family. I would love that. My favorite recipe was one that my mother always made. The main dish anyways, that's what we always had with my mother on Christmas. And for the cookies, it's funny because I had a list of maybe 5 or 6 different kinds of cookies, and what I ended up making was 2 kinds. And one of them, I doubled the recipe. But in the end, I was so glad I made a lot of those because they're my favorites. They're my favorites, and for sure the favorites of my son. And I was shocked the other day when I packed up some for him to take to his place. I was shocked when I saw how little of those are left. It's kind of funny. Yeah. But let me jump right into the knitting because I realize I'm wearing another sweater that you haven't seen in a while. And last time, a lot of you commented on the sweater that I was wearing, the yellow one with the stripes. And that's a design by Vera Välimäki. It's called Breathing Space. I've responded to many of your comments when you asked about it, but this one, I just forgot. I spaced out to mention it last time, even though it's one of my favorite sweaters. This one as well is one that I really love, even though my favorite overall sweater construction is top-down raglan. And this one has set-in sleeves, and also it's a little bit short, but it still is a favorite. And yes, I'm also wearing everybody's favorite pants, my Grinch cozy winter pants. And the sweater is called Fog Cutter by Thea Coleman. And I've knitted it a few years ago with hand spun yarn. And I spun the yarn specifically for the sweater, and it's local New Mexico fibers, Rambouillet fibers. And I dyed them just in this very pale, as you can see, very pale watery blue. And I just love how it turned out. Love to wear the sweater when I need a sweater. And I'm already getting hotter, as I always do when I record the podcast. But let's see how long I can keep the sweater on. Okay, what else is new? I finished a pair of socks for my husband, house socks, where I held 3 yarns together. I showed them, I think probably more like 3 or 4 episodes ago. And they're exactly like the socks that I had made for my daughter's birthday in August. And yeah, my husband has been wearing his and he's not going to take them off for the podcast. So sorry about that. It's just a pair of socks. But another thing that is finally finished and that you're probably tired of seeing is my is my birds of a feather shawl after the pattern by Andrea Mowry. I have been knitting on this for quite some time now, and I've finished it probably almost 2 weeks ago. And so in case you did not see any of these previous episodes, I used Zia Wool's yarns and 2 skeins of the velvet, which is the baby Suri alpaca silk lace yarn, alternated with honeysuckle, which is a merino cashmere and silk blend that I love. Also 2 skeins, and I use 3.5 millimeter needles. Andrea Mowry suggests 4 millimeter needles, but I just wanted a little more dense of a fabric. And I like how it worked out, and I like the size, and I have yet to block it, as you may or may not see, but it's just a great shawl. And I'm looking forward to wearing it. I just love the colors. I love the combination of orange and pink, and it's really nice. In regards to the shop, I wanted to mention at this point that my shop has not been updated in a while. We will get back into the swing of things when we are in the January of the new year. And so Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you're going to have a good start. And I did bring the yarn that I've used for the birds of a feather because it's also ready to be listed in the shop. This is More Than a Woman. It's the colorway that I used for the birds of a feather. So this will go into the shop, as well as a bunch of other colorways, and among them this one, which is called Perfect Purple. It's just a really nice neutral purple with some pretty speckles for visual and knitting. Sometimes just a solid color doesn't do it, so you just put in a few speckles and it just adds that little bit of interest while you're working on something. That's what I had in mind with this quite new colorway. And here's another one that I really, really love. That's another new one, and most likely this one will be called Big Sur, after a California coastal location. And actually a friend of mine named this after I said, I don't have a name for it yet. And she said, Big Sur. So I thought, that's a great name. I've been there this summer, and so that will work. I have made for Christmas and finished more of these. I showed you these Duffers last time on the last podcast, and it's a pattern on Ravelry. I can't recall if it's a pay for pattern or not. This was the first pair that I made in a very long time, but the sole of these was a yarn that felted a lot less than the yarn that I used in the top, maybe barely at all. And so I fudged with the pattern a lot to get it right. And I used a lot of different yarns. It was kind of fun, but then again, how much? You cannot always knit too much with the heavier needles because then it starts hurting your hands. But often when I was on that, I finished one slipper per evening. And I made a total of yes, after mine, I made 5 more pairs. One of them was kind of a fail. I don't know. It ended up being the largest pair, but the colors were not right for my son, who has the largest feet of all of us. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with those, and I don't even know where I left them. But I made these for my daughter, and I like how they turned out. So I changed a few things yet again in the center section, where once you start working the top of the slipper, you have a section of 6 stitches going in the center in the original pattern. So I felt like I need to decrease that, and I had 4 stitches running in the middle. I made these, and I'm going to show you the yarn in a second. That's another pair. And I think this is still a pair where they're wider because I think I still had 6 stitches in the center, but they also turned out nice. And here is the yarn that I used. I put it all in a basket because I wanted to see them all and have them all ready, and this is what I had assembled here. A lot of hand spun, and then I realized that what felt really, really good is some hand spun singles yarn. And I had a bunch of colors of this. I think I used a brown yarn that I just held together, where I just fed in at the same time some other colors. So I have this, which is that green and yellow green that I added to the brown, a hint of orange. Then I had this one that I haven't used yet, and more these guys. And did I show you this one already? I don't think so. And I kept one in a skein because I thought then you can see it a little bit better when it's still in the skein. I was also still considering combining these two, but I'm a little worried about, I just don't know how this is going to felt. And I had meant to make them for my daughter because she has an orange theme in her room in California. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to sneeze. No. So I thought, well, I'm going to make the sole this color and then the foot this color. But then when I experienced that the singles felted so good, I thought, maybe not. So I haven't done that yet. I may still do that because what I was not super happy with is the slippers for my son. So I made them the skinnier version with only the 4 middle stitches. And after felting, they were, I I don't know, they looked a little bit like, I just don't know. I didn't like the look of them. And so I decided I will make another pair. Also, they're kind of easy, and now I have the pattern kind of in my head. I mean, I still mark off on my pattern sheet. I still mark off all the different decrease and increase rows, but it's kind of fresh, so I have it in my head what I need to adjust to get a different result, is at least I think I do. And I thought I'm gonna try for his to hold two yarns together and go up a needle size. And I haven't told you yet, in the original pattern, you use 8mm needles. And I've used that for all of my slippers. But now this pair, I'm gonna double, and right now I'm using these. This is also one of those hand spuns, and this is just a leftover. I think it's an alpaca. So I have a bunch of leftovers that I had gathered that I haven't used much, except for like some accent rows, like here, the blue. Yeah, so I'll see how this goes, and if I don't have the slippers here anymore, I'll take a picture and show you next time. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's funny because what I do for felting, I do throw them into the washing machine on a higher temperature, usually hot, and I wash them with jeans, because that's what you need. For felting, you need the hot temperature. Even better if you hand felt, you alternate hot and cold. That's really gonna do the trick also. But in this case, I can't adjust that. So I do a hot setting, I add normal laundry detergent, and I add something for the friction, which helps the felting process. So I'm always gathering some jeans that need to be washed but haven't been washed. I kind of keep them for the next pair of slippers. Some pairs have also possibly been washed twice during the Advent season. Yes, so where to next? I meant to show you some hand spun yarn that was actually finished before I recorded the last podcast, but for some reason I completely spaced out and I never showed that yarn in the English podcast. So let me grab it. It's right next to me. And I am extremely happy with how this turned out. This is I will not use this for felting, by the way, in case you wonder. This is New Mexican Rambouillet, the same quality as this, which has that, the fibers had a lot of crimp, so the yarn has a lot of stretchiness and bounciness, which I totally love. And no plans for this yet, except for not felting. Then I have this. That was a larger amount of well, you see the colors. And I have yet to wash this, but it's fine so far. I will wash it, and I have not taken note of the yardage. I had one issue as I was plying. I was not really paying attention as I was spinning. I should have created a control card where I have a little piece of cardboard and I wind on my singles yarn to be able to check later, especially since it was a larger amount, to have that as a reference for continuously spinning the same weight of yarn. But I had the feeling that I started off a little bit finer and ended up slightly heavier. And that I will only find out. I cannot tell right now, but I will find out when I weigh and measure the skeins. And this was the last one where I really had the impression that it's lighter. There is also this, and I think this may have been Coriadale. 2-ply, as I mostly spin, and this one a little bit heavier than the other one. I had started spinning because I wanted to make Duke City mitts. It's a free fingerless mitt pattern that is available on Ravelry, but then I did many of those, and then I thought I was kind of done after making 15 pairs or so. And I do have some new stash that I brought that was gifted to me very generously by some sweet friends, and who totally nailed my taste. Look at this. It's a silk yarn, and a thank you, Casey. And I also got these, and I think I will use these also for fingerless mitts. No, this. It's a very soft mohair in some beautiful colors, and thank you, Brenda. I don't think she's one of my inky friends, but Casey watches the knitting podcast, I think, but I don't think Brenda does. But if you are, after all, thank you again. I already, of course, wrote her my thank yous. So this is a yarn that I actually also thought about using for slippers. It's a heavier, very woolly yarn. Beautiful color. That is this. And then next, I showed you in the last episode the tiny beginnings of a new sweater, which is after a pattern by the wonderful Gudrun Johnston, whom I was able to meet in Santa Fe when she had a book signing a little while ago, and I was super, super happy. That was she's such a sweet person and very kind, and I enjoyed it very much meeting her. And this is the sweater that I have started, if you possibly remember. And I've continued working on it. I bought the yarn in Wyoming at, Mount Meadow Wool Company. Christy gave me the recommendation to stop by there, and when we traveled a year ago, or more than a year ago, up north, we stopped there. It's a wool mill, and they produce their own line of yarn, and I picked some yarn for a colorwork sweater, and that's what I'm using finally. Super happy that this is in the works now. It's, as you could see, a cropped sweater, and I'm still working through my first ball of yarn. Another yarn quality with a lot of bounce. You can't see it anymore. I didn't bring the other skeins, but you will see that in the future as I get further along in this project. I have another sweater that I had started, if you remember that, and that was the Southwood. And it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I hope I'm not making that up, but I'm pretty confident it's a free one. But I had this as a, how shall I say? This was kind of like my starting drafty version, but in the end, I turned it into this. The story is that I want to make this sweater for my brother in all leftover sock yarns because I wanted to make something for him that is meaningful for the two of us in memory of our mother. In case you don't know, we lost our mother this year to COVID. Sorry, I gotta say it. If you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. I just have to throw that out. She'd be alive had she had the chance to be vaccinated. She just missed it by 2 weeks, and she would probably be here sitting with me in front of the camera right now had she had the chance to get vaccinated. And if nothing else convinces you to get the vaccine, then maybe this will, because I know one of her friends who said, no, I'm not going to let them put that into my body. And my mother said, why not? Do you want to end up on a respirator in a hospital and die like that? And I don't want to go into the details, but the friend then ended up getting vaccinated because of my mother's, shall I call it fate? I don't know. Okay, enough of that. I never want to talk about this stuff, but it just happens sometimes. Ooh, I lost some stitches. Where are my glasses? Oh no. Man, sorry. So the story of this sweater is, I wanted to make something special because my mother was always so amazing. She used up, when we were young and we didn't have a lot of money, she just used up all these little bits of yarn and always was able to make something out of nothing for us kids. And since you may know that she was such a big sock knitter, so she has all these sock yarns, and she had all these leftover sock yarns, and I thought, wow, this is gonna be perfect. I will do what she used to do. I will make a sweater for my brother, and I will use leftover sock yarns. I started the Southwood sweater and already modified something because I wanted a larger neckline, and I thought, sock yarn can be a little bit scratchy, whatever. And then I ended up with a neckline that was too big. I said, oh, maybe I'm gonna, fix that somehow. But then as I kept going, I thought, no, it's not gonna work. I ripped back. I came up with my own version here where I cast on 100 stitches for the neckline. Now, I'm thinking, is this too tight now? But I think it's gonna be okay. What do you think? I just don't want him to have a sweater where he's gonna be itchy all the time. But I started off with, let me find it. Excuse me for 1 second. Itchy nose problem, sorry. I'm thinking it's too tight. What will I do? Will I rip back one more time? So the problem on the first try was that after casting on, you double every second or every third stitch, which I thought, that's a lot of stitches to make. And I already had my doubts as I was doing it. And then I changed to my own version. I think originally you double every second stitch, and I changed it to doubling every third stitch, but that was still too much. And I cast on, I cast on 120 and added, after the ribbing, I added 40 stitches. I think what I will do now to really make sure it's right this time, because I haven't touched this in a little while, 2 weeks or so, I think I will put it on longer needles and see how it looks like now and how tight it is. It doesn't look too tight. What do you think? Before it was definitely too big. And now I cast on 90. Before I had 120. I said cast on 100 max. So did I cast on 100? I think I cast on 100. That's only 20 stitches of a difference. Well, I'll report back and tell you how it is. But I mean, in general, you get what I'm doing here, and I'm just switching yarns wherever one of the little balls, and I still have my first one here that from ripping back, but then I have little basket with all kinds. Initially, I wanted to combine one solid and one variegated sock yarn, but I don't think I'm going to do that. And I'm definitely using German sock yarn, which is machine washable and not any hand dyed, which would be softer, of course. But I want him to be able to just toss this in the machine, because it's going to be it's not going to be a fancy wear out to wherever kind of sweater, but more of a like work in the yard kind of sweater. Yeah. And think of our parents, because also my mom was the knitter. My dad was the one who worked in the garden and did a lot of outdoorsy activities around the house, and that's what my brother likes to do also. Yeah. So that was the, whatever it was called, the massively modified Southwood sweater. And now comes the one that I will change into. Hold on. Yes, I have picked up my yellow brick rodeo again, and it has gotten one sleeve. The pattern does not give you any instructions for adding sleeves. I have already modified the sweater where I wanted a tighter sleeve, but I didn't want a tight body. So I switched up stitch counts And when I worked on this, it was probably about 6 to 8 weeks ago, and I have no clue what I did. I probably, if I had to, I could probably figure it out, but I don't have to, because I probably next time I would knit another one of these. There is another pattern that utilizes this kind of design in the front, which I think is also really gorgeous. I was just looking at it this morning, and I'm thinking maybe if I make this again, because I enjoyed it so much, I will probably do that. It still needs a blocking, of course, which I will only do when I've done the other sweater, the other sleeve. I picked up all my stitches, and my stitch count was, I'm thinking 61 stitches, and I had to add, pick up 12 stitches under the arm. And then I started my decreases. I decreased by 2 stitches every 17 rows. But that, of course, is also, it has something to do with row gauge. I just thought that it would work. I did not do any math ahead of time. I just eyeballed it because I knew my sleeves were going to be tighter from the get-go, and it worked out perfectly. I love the fit of it. If I need to, I can wear even a long sleeve t-shirt under it. But as it is, it's tight enough, but not too tight, and perfect to pull up. Yeah, really very glad. So I did this in 3 evenings, nothing. Yeah. So this is going to be done hopefully by New Year's Eve. And because I just committed to a new cast on, which is really overdue because I showed you the yarn weeks ago, I want to make the Mariechen cardigan by Isabel Kramer. So that's going to happen on January 1st, where also originally I did plan another cast on. And that would be, I'm going to show you because it will happen soon. It's going to be the Tree Peonies shawl, a free lace pattern on Ravelry. Hello, free. Like there's a gazillion charts in this. I don't know. Thank you, dear designer who put this out as a free pattern. And I saw this shawl and I fell in love so hard with it, and I'm excited about starting it finally sometime in the new year. But a friend of mine in Germany wants some of my yarn, so she also wants to make the shawl, but she needs a larger quantity of yarn. I said I'm going to send you some, and then we're going to use the same yarn for the shawl. And I'm talking about Ziawool's Willow, which is a non-super wash lace yarn that has 4 ounces with about 1,200 yards, a generous amount for the shawl. I had one skein in the closet here, in the hallway closet, and I'm like, I think I put away more yarn, which are an option. So I went to my different stash locations. Yes, it's a thing, different stash locations in this house. And I ended up gathering all of these colors for the Tree Peonies shawl. This one is the top one is the one that my friend picked. All of these would have been options for me. I once was about to make up that Hochi Locatelli shawl, considered it, but never did make it because it just didn't happen. And so one of these 3 will be mine. And I think probably not this one. Just because I'm a color person. I love this, but I'm thinking I'm gonna go a little brighter, either one of these two. I love the purple undertones in this one, but also I love this because it's gonna match my eyes pretty good, I think. So, decision not made yet. And I will keep you posted when this happens. It's probably going to be later in January because I'm going to have to mail this to my friend, and then when she has it, we will do a cast on. And let me know if you're interested in making this as well, and if you would like to join us in a little informal knit along. The last thing that I want to show you is not yarn related, because I was telling you about my cookie list and I just grabbed it real quick. They're all German recipes this year. Some, like I said, I only ended up making 2, but I know there's a lot of you out there who also love paper. And so I thought I'd show you how I transcribe some of my recipes. And it's not just baking, but I had this book, which is linen bound and really great quality on the inside. And I have always liked to use fountain pens, even for recipes. So if you, by the way, are not interested in the fountain pen and ink related stuff, this is going to be about that more, but I also want to share a recipe with you. So grab a piece of paper, grab a fountain pen, or grab your recipe book, and probably not. Get ready to take some notes, and then you can transcribe it nicely into your recipe book. But I wanted to show you that depending on the book that you use, it just I have not, even though these are newer recipes, I have to say that altogether, I never had the experience that a fountain pen written recipe faded in one of the books. So then I get to use my different pens and my different inks, and wait, this is not the right one. Oh yes. So we call them chocolate chip cookies, even though they are not a typical, like an American chocolate chip cookie. And what I will tell you is a recipe for a cookie that is just dumped on the baking tray with a spoon or 2 spoons, to help put it down. And I don't use the little chocolate chip thingies, but I buy chocolate in a bar. And I don't shave off the chocolate, but I kind of like cut it off in a 1/4 inch, which makes it roughly, okay? Don't be like measuring it, but I just take a knife and I cut it off, and when you cut the chocolate, it just breaks and crumbles. So I get irregular crumbles, and you can essentially use the chocolate that you love for these cookies, which is great. And I also, because I like coconut, so I usually throw in some coconut flakes. But are you ready? You're gonna need a scale, or you're gonna need to use Google to transcribe this into cups if you don't have a scale. But okay, here we go. Chocolate chips, like from Oma Gerda, which was my mother. 125 grams of soft butter, 75 grams of white sugar, 75 grams of brown sugar, a pack of vanilla sugar, which is available in Germany, but if you don't have that, just add some vanilla, what's it called? Vanilla essence or whatever you have. 1 egg, 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk, 200 grams of flour. I usually do part of it whole wheat flour. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and it's not the American teaspoon, even though it might be exactly that amount, but you actually take a normal small teaspoon out of your silverware drawer, and you take the teaspoon, and it has to be flush. Then a teensy weensy bit of salt, 100 grams of chocolate, 150 grams of chopped walnuts. And the walnuts, I love nuts in my cookies, so I usually add more. It doesn't matter. You can also, if you're a chocolate lover like me, add more chocolate. I think I've done both. I think I've added more of both of these. And then when they're done, you're supposed, after baking, by the way, you're supposed to dust them with cocoa. I had no cocoa, so I didn't do that, but I just wanted to mention it. So you whip the butter, you add sugar, vanilla, egg, and milk, and keep whipping until it's light and creamy. Then you add the flour, baking powder, and salt, then the chocolate, then the walnuts, and then you put your little blobs on the baking tray. Give it a little bit of a space in between the cookies, and you bake them for 13 minutes at 350 degrees. That's it. And if you give me a second, I will show you how they look like. Here they are. Oh my goodness. Like I said, I doubled the recipe, and this is all that's left. Okay. So good. Last but not least, fun pen news. There are new pens in the house. A Pelikan Sylvexa broad nib. Model is called 20. It's vintage. Then I had a very sweet trade with a friend for a Franklin Christoph Model 66 with a broad nib. Not inked yet. And then I did want to show you my beautiful, oh, it matches my sweater. My new Gold Rush Esterbrook. Oh my gosh, that was a total surprise. My husband and my daughter picked it, and I am looking forward to using this one as well as the Franklin Christoph. And this one, the German, oh, I didn't open it. For those who are interested, this was purchased on eBay Kleinanzeigen in Germany, and I have inked it with Iroshizuku Yamabudo, another gift from my family, and it writes like a dream. Incredible. I just realized I never told you the yarn that I used for this. This is Storyteller yarn in the yoke of the sweater, and this is Zia Wool's Dreamcatcher in the colorway I'm having a total blank. I have no idea. Well, that's so be it. Next time I'll tell you. I promise I'll look it up. And I'm looking, I think this is all I wanted to tell you. And yet again, I'm wishing you a very happy new year. Let's hope that the new year brings us relief from this crazy situation. And I hope you're all taking good care of yourselves and staying healthy, and keep knitting, keep writing if you love that too. And happy knitting. Bye.